up, making sure everything's ready to go. We run the rehearsals, or stage manage the performances, and then make sure everything gets packed up safely. So yeah, if you have anything technical related that's not video, those should be directed my way. Nice to meet you all.
Great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your introductions. And sorry, my name is Ashlyn. I was having a little bit of technical difficulties in the beginning, but now all is good. And so during this time, we are going to be opening up for questions. And so, yeah, feel free to please just unmute yourself and just go for it.
Well, this is Bill Beck. Dani, Will, appreciate it. We did have a Board of Counselors meeting yesterday where Eileen Jeanette spoke for quite a while, talked a lot about her role and how she's developed it, but also talk about Dani's role and Will and William role. So it was very good. My question is, what type of challenges have you had come across during this pandemic that you wouldn't have normally during live performances?
I guess I can start just with the safety aspect of it, because as you all know, we haven't been able to go back to live performances just yet. But a lot of my work nowadays is we're working closely with the UCI Health Department to make sure all of our safety protocols that we're doing are all approved by someone who's not, a stage manager like me. They're actual epidemiologists, so we're not just saying this seems safe. We're making sure, everybody will be safe. And so those got approved a few days ago. There's still a little bit of back and forth, but for the most part, they said all of our protocols seem very safe to minimize the spread of the aerosols and all that sort of thing. And then just, seeing what all the other symphonies are doing, because I forget who said it, why, but there's basically a study for everything. Some people say, use plexiglass, and it'll, protect the musician. Some people say the plexiglass will, not allow the air handlers to work and that sort of thing. We are going to be doing plexiglass when we go forward. A combination of most of the studies seem to think it's safe and it's something that the musicians want, and that's something that the Orange County is requiring, so it makes it kind of easy on that part. But yeah, but all the extra safety things you wouldn't even think about, if a musician says, oh, I want a new chair because it's squeaky, well, now we're going to have a crew member, wear gloves and a mask, and the chair is going to have to be pre-sanitized, and then we'll have to, the musician will have to stand 6 feet away while we swap out that chair. So it'll just be a lot of extra time to be extra safe. So yeah, mostly safety is how I've been affected.
I have a question. What do you see as potentially changing as a result of all this? Because the exposure of the symphony has been greatly expanded with being online. And seems to me that at the end of all this, we might be in a better place when it finally gets back to normal. Can you explain some of the things that you see as being possible changes to the way music is presented in Orange County from now on, or from when we get back?
I don't think I'll ever have a night off again. To be like that is part of it. I think as we move forward, we're obviously going to be looking at live streaming. That's, I don't think, a surprise to anyone as we talk about it. And that's something we want to do, something we're going to be set up to do as soon as we get back. Like, that's very much on the horizon. So I think we're not going to take for granted recording, not going to take for granted being able to stream things online. And I think it's going to be a major part of what we do moving forward. Because not only is it a way to kind of super serve people, but I know personally, I've attended concerts and wished I could attend them again. That performance was so great. That moment was so great. I want to, I listen to Pines of Rome all the time and think about like being in the house. I think we played that opening night 2016, and think about being in the house for that and like just being enveloped in that sound. And I'm like, I want to live that over and over again. And I think we're going to have a lot more opportunity for people to do that and have more chances for people to experience Pacific Symphony from home. On top of that, the partnership with KCET after our 4 episodes of Southland Sessions air will likely continue in some form. So I think that will also be increased exposure, and we'll end up with exposure, not just, exposure is such a weird word now because I think about it in like the two meanings of like viral exposure and, you know, like the good kind. Sorry. But I think that will also continue because we have been really enjoying the partnership with them and have had a great, you know, some great creative success in the partnership with them. So I know for me, it's going to be a lot of recording, a lot of capturing shows that we never would have captured before, and a lot of making sure that Pacific Symphony is always, you know, is always thinking about these things in the forefront of their minds, not just in the back of their minds. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's so interesting, especially to like how is it like with the PBS Pacific Symphony concerts, and just trying to put that all together with that, and then just trying to produce it on television as well.
It's actually pretty fun. It's stretched my skill set a lot. I always used to say the thing I liked about what I do at work is I come in, the show happens, I direct the video for the show, no one thinks about it again, and I'm done. Like, it's always been very quick for me. And it's nice because I can do a lot of prep work, but in the end, the show happens and I'm done. Where kind of now where I'm at is the show happens, or, you know, we do some recording for the show and I work on the show for a couple weeks, and then I get notes on the show, and then I work on the show again and again and again, and then eventually it airs and I'm done. So it's a longer process. The full process of making those is actually pretty interesting and fun. They're made primarily with archival material, as you all know. So we look at what we have in our video archive. We sit down with Carl and start just talking about stories we can tell with that, and how we can shape what we present and really present the best of what Pacific Symphony is. From there, me, Carl, Eileen sit down with Juan Davis, who is the Chief Creative Officer at KCET. We have a meeting where it's basically us going, Carl, tell us your thoughts. Like, why have you programmed this? Why do you want to do this? And he, being the brilliant human being he is, usually says things that Eileen and I are furiously trying to write down, because we then want to put that in the script for the actual concert. The one you'll see on Wednesday, actually, Carl wrote that entire script himself. He was talking and he sent it to, or he was talking about it, and we just said, so this is one you need to do. We can try and capture everything you say, but you're going to say it better. So then we schedule a time in the concert hall to film with him. And we film Carl, I take it, edit it, and try and make something that is really nice with it. And I'm very proud of actually the concert you'll see on Wednesday. I don't mean for this to just be a teaser for that, but the Heroic Beethoven, Carl has a lot of himself and a lot of his heart in it, and it's a really, really great presentation. So, that process, and then it just kind of starts over. In 2 weeks from Wednesday, we have another concert on KCET, and we start over looking at the archive and looking at what we can put into it. It's been a process of always, as we've gone on, having to change our plans a little bit, as we were very much hoping to be filming with the musicians at this point, but realizing it's going to be all archival now. As we kind of shift our plans moving forward, we just, keep trucking along, and we're lucky to have a fairly deep video archive, and very lucky to have the brilliance of Carl, who just keeps coming up with things that kind of blow us all away. So, yeah.
Thank you, Will. Go ahead.
I wanted to check on the broadcast date. You said KCT on Wednesday, but it's actually also Channel 50 or KOCE, right? On another night?
Yeah, I know we have that at pacificsymphony.org. I always focus on the first date because
I don't know what
I have to get the show to them by then. So, but it does get broadcasts on PBS SoCal as well. I believe like a week later or so. I think it's on a Saturday night. I would have to look it up.
So, Will, I've been on the board for well over 30 years, and so I've been on the board longer than you've been born. All of you, Dani, Will,
Let's check the year there. I'm
Will.
curious.
So I came my first board meeting was January 26th, 1987.
Oh, that's like, you just beat me by like 6 months on this planet.
So I have a little bit of corporate history floating around in my brain. But anyway, who did the video for our symphony gala on March the 7th? Was that you, Will?
That was me. Paul Harkins, our director of creative services, makes a lot of the contents, like the fundraising videos, anything about our educational program. He's an amazing storyteller in the video realm, and he makes a lot of those. I was doing the live video for the gala on March 7th. Yes.
Okay. So Dani, how long have you been with the symphony?
I'm coming up on 4 years in January.
So what's your favorite part of your work?
I would say, I mean, I have to say, I mean, working with these people, like everyone at the symphony is really amazing. Particularly, I mean, Eileen is just the most wonderful boss you could absolutely ever ask for.
I know her very well.
Yes.
Yeah, she is wonderful.
Yeah, working with these people. I grew up in the music world. Both of my parents were band directors. I've been around that world, and we went to numerous symphony orchestra concerts since literally before I was born, in 1984, by the way. So I was in preschool when you were starting. So let's see. Yeah, and just, the random interactions, having known so many, say clarinetists and trumpet players over my lifetime, to meet a new one and to see them in action. And we have such amazing musicians, and some of them have such interesting personalities, and people on the staff too. It's just, it's really, yeah, that's my favorite part.
Great. Yeah. So I've found that the symphony family, board of counselors, the board, the musicians, and the staff is kind of like a family to me. It just feels comfortable there. Everyone feels comfortable with each other without any judgments or anything. It's just pleasant. So Will, how long have you been with the symphony?
Will Hunter, I've been here, it's more than 10 years. I'm trying to remember exactly, but it's been a long time. I actually started as summer crew, probably in 2007 when I was still in college. I was the traffic operator at Irvine Meadows. So right when you came through the box office, I was the one who held up the stop sign for all the shuttle carts to go by.
So
and then
we'll say from the ground up then.
Yeah, and then from there I became intern, and I'm still here, so I'm happy to be here.
Oh, great. And Will Pruett, how long have you been with the symphony?
I've been with the symphony for 8 years. I started as the assistant stage manager, working very close with Will Hunter, and still work very close with Will Hunter. I spend back in the days when we were in offices, I spent half the day in his office, but mostly messing around, but sometimes working.
You want your credibility.
Exactly. And then about 5 years ago, I started working primarily with our live broadcast video, and have in the last 2-3 years been directing and doing a lot of that. But I learned most of this through working at Pacific Symphony. And if you remember, a colleague at Pacific Symphony, Jeff Sells, he took me under his wing and has taught me so much, and has been a really was like a really excellent mentor for, and still is a really wonderful mentor for me. So yeah, I've been so lucky being here and getting to work with the people I do and kind of get the experiences I've gotten. This is a really amazing place.
So as long as, let me just say one more thing, and that's that the two Wills and Dani, and I know Ashlyn from the office, and also Nikki very well, and when you all came, I just don't take for granted what you do, and I appreciate you being here doing this for us. And I'm really glad to be on here to hear what you have to say today. When I got Ashlyn's email yesterday, I thought, okay, yeah, I can do that. I'm signing on. I want to hear these guys. So thank you, Ashlyn, for thinking to invite me. And thank you, everyone, for what you're doing.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much, John. It means
Thank
a
you,
lot.
John.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of questions. Dani, yesterday on the Board of Counselors meeting, we had Eileen talk a lot about some of the challenges and issues that come up with some of the guest artists, particularly in the pop side. And I just want to know if you could have anything kind of interesting or humorous that you can share with us without saying the artist's name, that you come across while you're working with coordinating all this work with the artist.
Certainly, yes.
Yeah, don't mention the name. We don't want to embarrass anybody.
Oh, no. But as you can imagine, in the artistic world, there's some really interesting personalities, and because you have people that have spent their entire lives so dedicated to their craft that, well, sometimes they have other things that they don't do so well. I don't mean that as an insult at all. It's just, they have to do what they have to do so they can put on amazing performances. But some of them, and honestly, the vast majority of them are really so nice. There's, it is not that diva stereotype. And a lot of it is because Eileen knows that, knows who is easy to work with. She's been doing this a long time. She has really excellent relationships. Humorous stuff. I mean, since you mentioned pops, I can just say that I don't do too much with the pop shows. Most of my work is done in advance, very early, a year in advance, say, when a contract comes in. And those are often pretty funny because they're very long, they're very convoluted. And sometimes the artist writers are kind of cobbled together from various formats, and they don't always proofread them. And so sometimes they ask for very strange things, or they are very oddly specific about exactly what kind of sandwich is on what kind of tray and when it should be given to someone and should it be cold or not. And then they say, this needs to be vegetarian and that means fish only. And so you really wonder who writes these things and who reads them. That's humorous. And I don't know, with other artists, one thing I do is oftentimes when they come to town is I pick them up from the airport. And there are just some absolutely wonderful conversations I have had in the 5 minutes driving from John Wayne Airport to either the hotel or a performance venue. People are hilarious and they have all kinds of stories. I generally ask them, like, where do you spend most of your year? And there are some people that they, spend a few weeks at home and the rest of the time they're just flying around the globe performing. And so they have such interesting stories to tell. And yeah, and I'm sure Will Hunter also has interesting stories about artists backstage and the kind of interesting situations that you get yourself into.
Yeah, for the most part, yeah, most of the talent, as we call them, is very nice. I work most of my job actually is working with their production people to make sure by the time their band and whoever's performing shows up is happy, and we don't run into issues like that. And Pops is it's not difficult. It's just more involved than, like, say, classics, because we have to consider their needs. Renting, backline equipment. Most groups don't travel with their own pianos and, guitars and drum kits. So that's all stuff that we rent and bring in. And of course, all the extra audio that we have to bring in. So there's a lot of coordination, making sure our audio engineer and their audio engineer are on the same page. Typically, if you've been to Pops, you'll see there's 2 soundboards out there. One is dedicated just to the orchestra, because with a 50-person orchestra, you have, easily, 100 inputs or something like that on top of the band. So that way one person can focus just on making the orchestra sound good. And also because a lot of our Pops, the orchestra plays alone on the first half, so you can't have it going through the other board and then their production guy will run that one. But yeah, for the most part, we've had, some issues with Pops acts, but we always work them out by the time of the show, and yeah, they all go pretty smoothly. I think as Dani was talking about interesting things in the contracts, I'm always curious, what prompted that. I remember one said make sure the forklift is charged, so I wonder where they showed up that the forklift wasn't charged. Um, one of my favorites was vegetarian options only. This means fish, and I wasn't really sure how to interpret that one. Um, but yeah, some of the groups they have some pretty interesting contracts.
Well, we're glad you guys are there to help them and make it smooth as you can for the artists. You guys work very hard. Will, the recent donation of $130,000 for new video, I think it's new video equipment. Are you looking forward to that, and what plans do you have to use this new equipment?
Oh, I'm already having a lot of fun with that. New toys are always great. One of the challenges we've run into in this time is we don't know if we will be able to record everything in the concert hall. Segerstrom Center for the Arts has been very nice about letting us come in and, record with Carl, but that's, there are 5 of us on site at that point. It's easy to stay distanced, and we're working with them to come up with protocols for the concert hall, but we don't know when we will be allowed inside. So ideally we will be able to have the orchestra there beforehand. So, or have the orchestra play before we're allowed in there. And so what we had to work on was, how do we film outdoors somewhere, Concert Hall Plaza, Mission San Juan Capistrano, how do we go somewhere outside and film it to the quality that we want it, that we want something that we present to you. And that is where this new equipment comes in, coming up with that system and how we do it. So we've been using now for this last PBS show we filmed, our new cameras, a couple of them to film this. We're still waiting on some gear to come in, but it's basically kind of overhauling from the ground up what we can do and adding to it. So normally if I'm filming in the concert hall to do image magnification on a concert, what you're seeing on the big screen, I normally have 7 to 8 cameras at my disposal, 5 of which can move, 3 of which are just stuck in one place. Either you see, the hands on the piano or the shot of Carl from the back of the house, things like that. This will give me 6 additional cameras when we are doing that. So I'll have 13 cameras out when we start live streaming. And that just gives me more shots, more of an opportunity to show you, to take you into the experience, to really tell the story the music is telling, which is ultimately the goal, to make something that makes you feel like you were there, but also shows you things that you could never see if you were just sitting in the house. Because instead of just trying to recreate the experience, we want to do something that brings you kind of deeper in and gives you a closer relationship with the wonderful musicians in the orchestra. So that donation is huge in giving us the capacity to film outside, the capacity to film just about anywhere, and the ability to do it really well and at the high standard that we set for Pacific Symphony.
I would share with the governing members, particularly some of the newer ones. I remember a performance 3 or 4 years ago where it was a Mozart concerto for 2 pianos and orchestra, Mozart's E-flat concerto. And the camera work was fantastic, because not only did you catch the pianos, because it's kind of like a competition between the 2 pianos, and you were kind of back and forth on the keyboard, showing the hands only, and then some broad shots. It was fantastic. I love that performance. You guys did a lot of good work on that.
Are there any other more questions from our participants that you'd like to ask? And if so, just unmute yourself and just go for it. Let's see. No? Okay, so for our next question, so what's the difference for just working like in an outdoor setting, such as like Pacific Amphitheater, to working inside like the concert hall, and just what are like the preparation differences for that?
So the concert hall is nice because it's a concert hall. So a lot of the infrastructure is already there. It's designed, acoustically for the symphony. We have, custom risers for the orchestra and that sort of thing. Everything's just already there. Pacific Amphitheater is, since it's more of like a festival setting, I will say it's a lot better than setting up at Irvine Meadows because there is more infrastructure. At Irvine Meadows, we used to joke that it was literally a slab of concrete with a roof on top because when we showed up in the morning or the day before, there was that's what it was. There was no audio, there was no lighting, there was no orchestra shell, there was nothing. We built all of that. If we were lucky, we could build it the day before, but oftentimes there would be another event there the day before. So we'd have to show up at 6, 7 in the morning to get all that prepped and ready for a 2:30 rehearsal and 8 p.m. show. Pacific Amphitheater is a lot easier because since they're more set up for festival style, all the audio is already in place and all the lighting is in place. And as you know, we don't use a shell and that sort of thing because the stage is much smaller. So we opted to have more musicians on stage than to put an orchestra shell in place and that sort of thing. So there's just a lot more logistics to work out. And when we're doing outdoor events, obviously with the microphones, there's a lot more logistics with that sort of thing. But Sean Murphy is typically our audio engineer for that. If you've met him, and he's great and does great work with us. Let's see, what else is logistically interesting? Movies are always interesting. I don't know if Pruett wants to talk a little bit about that, but hanging that big screen and making sure the projection works and all that sort of thing, in addition to the audio. And for a lot of our movies, we use a click track with the orchestras, which is always interesting to coordinate. But yeah, definitely inside the concert hall is a lot easier just because it's built for it. Outdoors, a lot more logistics to figure out.
I know that Star Wars concert last in the Pacific Amphitheater was so much fun. That was very memorable. Everyone with their lightsabers and just waving them around. So.
I always like to say that I get to sleep when we're in the concert hall. And a lot of times, the night before you're doing an outdoor show, especially back at Irvine Meadows, there was a lot less sleep those days. Like Will said, we would get there around 6 or 7 in the morning, and normally that day would go till about 3 a.m. So if we were lucky, some days,
on a good
it
day,
would be like 4. Some days it would be 4 or 5, and you're just like, cool, hour 26, let's go. I cannot wait to sleep. The movie concerts are fun because you not only have, your big screen that everyone is seeing, you also have your screen for the conductor that it's not just the movie they're watching, but they're watching different cues that are in their score. It has, just like someone conducting in a studio, it has little blips that come up that show you, kind of show you music is coming, show you where it's stopping. They help you follow along with your score. Like the conductors, Richard Kaufman's awesome at it. The conductors that do that work they have to pay attention to so many more things than, just the music. And they also have to do a phenomenal job with the music, especially if you're playing Star Wars. People are expecting Star Wars to sound really, really good. So they also have in their ear a click track, which I saw a question in the chat asking what a click track is. It is honestly one of the most annoying things in the world. It's a thing in the musician's ear going with the beat that they're supposed to be playing. It counts them in. It makes sure that all of the musicians are playing together. Some movies use it, some don't. I know I've worked outside of Pacific Symphony. I've worked extensively touring with some of the Harry Potter and concert films. And those movies, they insist that the conductors of them do not use click track. But most of the movies that come in, you end up using click track. Our players definitely like to have click track. Most of them play in the Hollywood studios very often. It's really fun to look at the recent Star Wars movies and pause where they list the orchestra and be like, I know them, I know them, I know them, I know them, I know them. Ooh, Barry, I know them, I know them. So they are very much used to click track. They're comfortable in that environment. So they all want it quite a bit. But those are very fun concerts to do. I have a lot of fun getting to play with the projectors outside. And, by the time the movie starts at 8:15 in the evening at Pacific Amphitheater, I'm usually a very happy person just looking at the work we've done and seeing it all come together. It's really neat.
So I
Speaking
have a
on the, oh, sorry, I was gonna say,
yeah.
speaking on the click track thing too. For some of the ones that don't have click track, I was always amazed by Richard because, not like Will said, not all of them have click track, and some of them have the video feed for the conductor with the lines going across it. But some of them, he actually would have two screens. One would be the video feed just as itself, and the other was an analog clock. It was like a on. Well, it was a video feed of an analog clock, so that it was a program doing the analog clock, and they'd start that timer when the movie started, and that was all Richard had to make sure that he was in time with wherever he had to be in the music. And in his score, he had just red circles, every couple bars at like where the second hand should be and like what time he should be at, and that's the only way he was able to keep on track. And I don't think he ever missed a beat. It was amazing.
So I just had a question on this click track. When you see pictures of people playing in a studio for, my brother does it in London, and they all wear headphones, and I've always forgotten to ask him, the headphones then are where the click track's going through?
Yeah,
So,
the headphone. Yeah, so everybody has the click. Typically, they'll have the click going to those headphones. Everybody has the same click, and then they can also, kind of use those as monitors for the musicians. So, like the winds, the wind section, they'll have all the wind sound in those headphones, but and maybe a little bit for the brass and that sort of thing, whatever makes them comfortable for performing. Because when they're in that kind of studio setting, it doesn't sound like it's going to sound, on the movie or something.
they're actually playing with that click going on in their heads all the time. How maddening. My gosh.
Most of them prefer it. Just like Will was saying, they do all the studio work all the time. So yeah, they're so used to it. It's almost like a crutch. If they don't have it, they're like, I need it. Where's my click, click, click?
Yeah, I'll roll video sometimes because the click track file is actually embedded in the video. So we'll roll video to test everything, and you'll just hear from the stage, if no one's wearing the headphones, you'll just hear the click, like the pulse of the click coming from it, and it's the most annoying sound in the world. It is. I'm like, I don't know how they do it.
Interesting.
And the click is so important, when there is involved in the music, that we'll usually hire an extra crew person just to like there'll be the audio engineer, running, making sure all the audio sounds good, and then there'll be a click engineer just making sure that the click is working. Because if it doesn't work for a show that needs click, it's not good.
Yeah, it's like an electronic metronome in their head, but it's timed to the film because the click's based on 24 frames per second, and it's really accurate, particularly in dance pieces. When Richard Copland conducted Singing in the Rain, I asked him after the concert, how did you do that without a click track? And he said, I used punches and streamers, video notes and things on the film. But when it came to the dance sequences, I had to do click track. Otherwise, I couldn't keep up with Gene Kelly and Donald O'Connor. Very tough.
On this click track, then I heard kids from the youth orchestra talking about using click tracks. So they're getting experience quite early on because of doing these Zoom performances where half the orchestra is on the screen. When they did, what was it? They played something recently.
Shostakovich 5, I believe.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
So they use that. So they're getting this experience quite early on. That's very good.
Yeah. As we talk about click track, one of the ways orchestras have found, to still perform and still create things without being allowed in the same place at the same time, it's been using click track and synchronizing their performances. So then video editor can take it and put it all together. That's where you see like the mosaic pieces Pacific Symphony has done and the Pacific Symphony Youth Orchestra have done. It's using click track on them, which is a really neat use of technology and a really wonderful thing. I know some of our musicians have said it's one of their favorite things that they've gotten to do during the pandemic because it makes it feel to them like they're together playing again, which is really great.
So you probably have time for maybe just one last question. So if you'd like to go ahead and ask our ops team.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So my name's Kathy Gilbert, and I'm a member of the Center Docent Group. We give tours to the public, and it's really an exciting responsibility and fun. So I'm sure that some of you have seen us come through with our groups. Before COVID, we were doing tours every day of the year. And thank you for this, including us in your video today, your presentation, because I've already learned things that I would add to my script about the Pacific Symphony. My question is, I don't know if you've ever seen us come through with groups and we've said something that is not true and you've gone, oh no. I hope not, but is there any particular things that you would want us to share with the people we bring on tour? Because once we've brought them on tour, they become very supportive of the Pacific Symphony. They're just overwhelmed with our building, and so anything you would want me to know about to add to that. And thank you.
Actually, you know, when I saw you on the screen, I was like, you look really familiar, so it must have been from one of those walkthroughs. But
Yeah.
actually, because I'm there a lot when the walkthroughs come through, like I was saying, I'm always there for the load-ins and the load-outs and stuff. But honestly, your walkthroughs are pretty thorough from what I've seen, because, you know, we do listen in, you know, as we're moving stuff, as you're talking and stuff, because we're trying to make sure we, you know, don't say anything bad or swear, you know, and, you know, we're lifting cases and that sort of thing. But honestly, because the symphony we do tours occasionally too, and I actually use one of your docent forms for when I do those tours because your tours are so thorough. So honestly, I think your tours are great.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything false yet.
Anyone else? No?
Well,
Okay,
yeah.
thank you.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for just joining us this Saturday morning for this Coffee and Conversations, this governing members event. And Bill, if you have any last words you'd like to share as well in closing.
Yeah, thank everybody who, first of all, everybody who attended, governing members and future governing members. Our basic goal is to get you more engaged with the orchestra and the works of the staff and this production staff that you heard today. So I think it brought us closer, and you get a lot more insight to what it takes from conception through performance of the great staff we have here. And I want to thank Dani, Will for giving up their time to share some information. And I wish everybody a good day and stay safe.